The appointed hour is 1 minute by my watch past the time.
Come on,
Alderman, you are always where you need to be when you need to be there.
Thank you for the cut.
Anytime, Alderman. With that, Ms. Whitby, would you please call the roll?
Gibson.
Present.
Yielding.
Here.
Dobbins. Thomas.
Here.
Berry.
Here.
Vestal.
Here.
Height. Witcher.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you very much. Can I ask that we stand for the prayer to be followed by the pledge? Please bow our heads. Dear Father, we want to thank you for the opportunity of gathering together as a city council and as a community to deliberate the business of this city. We ask for your guidance and direction in the things that we do tonight and as we work toward making this city the best that we know how to make it. In this world that we find ourselves, we ask for your guidance in helping us see both state and nationally and internationally ways to live better together, to honor each other and to respect our differences. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make a motion we approve the minutes. Second. And special call for the last meeting.
And special call. Motion made and seconded. On the motion, Ms. Whitby.
Gibson.
Present.
Yielding.
Here.
Thomas.
Here. I said yes.
Oh, okay.
I
There.
just tested
That
him.
is a motion. It
I
is not
tested
a
him.
presence.
I tested him.
Berry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Communications. If you can direct your attention to communications, do I have a blanket motion?
Who we accept 1 through 3?
Motion made and second on 1 through. Is there a second on 1 through 3?
Second.
On the motion, 1 through 3.
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Berry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Would you read number 3? Excuse me, number 4. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is a project update from the Little Rock District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, North Little Rock Dark Hollow. This proposed flood reduction project for the Dark Hollow area of North Little Rock is a channel project including replacement of the existing tunnel under Redwood Street. Project formulation was originally described in a 1977 survey project. The project was economically feasible, but the majority of the project-related benefits were for land enhancement. The project was determined to be in conflict with Executive Order 11988, which discourages development of
Tell you what,
floodplains.
let me just, if I can interrupt, just summarize that. I pulled this out of a magazine or a publication of the Little Rock Corps of Engineers, and it by and large indicates that engineering and design are accelerated to be completed that at the end of January 04. I know Alderman Thomas and Alderman Dobbins were interested in that, and it just appears that that's going about as fast as we can move it along.
I mean, there's a lot of people at home. I would like for her to go read it. Yeah.
That's fine. That's why I put it in there, but I just want to make sure that we highlight that. Sometimes we have a tendency to not listen to lengthy, but I sure don't have a problem with that. And I just wanted to highlight, several questions that you asked, because I asked that this be added to the communications. Go ahead, Ms. Whitby.
A subsequent May 1988 report recommended the construction of channels and a new outlet. The local sponsor, the City of North Little Rock, recently expressed an interest, again, in pursuing a solution to the flooding problems in Dark Hollow. Section 576 of the Water Resources Development Act of 1999 directed the Corps to review the plan and determine if the project is economically justified, technically sound, and environmentally acceptable, and if so, construct the project. The design cost-sharing agreement was executed with the City of North Little Rock in May 2000, and a limited reevaluation study was initiated. When the study is complete, plans and specifications will be initiated. A report was scheduled to be available for review this fall. However, the completion date has slipped until February because of difficulty in identifying a plan that is locally acceptable and meets Corps' economic criteria. We are currently investigating. The district has worked extensively with the sponsor, who is satisfied with the Corps project and responsiveness. The FY03 President's budget request includes $200,000 that will be used for design. The district could use an additional $200,000 to maintain the City of North Little Rock's preferred accelerated schedule of completing the planning, engineering, and design in January 2004.
That's good.
Move we accept as filed.
On the motion?
Gibson,
Yes.
Yielding,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Vestal,
Yes.
and Witcher.
Yes.
All right, that takes care of the presentation, of the communications. Before I get into Jeff Daly on City Year, I'd like to introduce, I understand, Wayne Rathburn of our Solid Waste Management here. Wayne, you want to just come up and give us that invitation, and then I'll move on to Mr. Daly.
Mayor Hayes, thank you for that. Members of the City Council, Thursday is America Recycles Day, and our company, Waste Management, is a national sponsor of this event. We're going to have several events throughout the city, North Little Rock and Little Rock. I want to invite you out for lunch on Thursday from about 11:30 to 12:30. Take a look at our recycling facility, see how we process, bale, and ship out the product. That'll be Thursday, 11:30 to 12:30. We'll have a barbecue lunch, take a tour of the facility, and if you have any questions, take a look at, I know that North Little Rock is looking into curbside recycling. We handle that at our facility as well. But anyway, if you want to know how to get there, I'll have maps here faxed over. It's over at the port off of Foosh Dam. It's on 7900 Sloan Drive. So thank you for your time. I know you're busy.
Well, we appreciate you being here. We look forward to, some of us hosting, or at least accepting your opportunity to host us for a little barbecue. And you're right, we are looking at recycling, and we would look forward to, taking advantage of any opportunity, including lunch.
Thank you.
Take care. We have a pretty exciting opportunity, and Jeff Daly. Jeff is over here. He's been working on City Year for several years, I think, and he's got a presentation that he'd like to make for us. So, Jeff, if I can ask you to come to the microphone, and y'all feel free to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the City Council. I'm Jeff Daly, and tonight we're pleased to present to you a program that empowers young people to effect positive and sustainable change in our communities. A program that puts the energy and idealism of young people to work for the benefit of all citizens. Last month, through an exciting and innovative program called City Year, over 1,000 young, diverse people from across the country began a year of service to their communities. Mentoring and tutoring children in public schools, actively leading and engaging citizens in service, and serving as positive role models in 14 cities across our nation. Now, in conjunction with leaders from throughout our community, including General Wesley Clark, former Secretary of Transportation Rodney Slater, Mayor Jim Daly in Little Rock, Steve Navoychek in the city of North Little Rock, and many, many other leaders throughout the community. We're proud to be working to bring a City Year program to Central Arkansas. Now we're going to see a brief video.
members come to my school, they light up the building.
City Year provides that chance for people to realize a connection to one another, to their community, to their nation, and to be engaged.
Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope.
The right question to ask is, what can we do with Africa?
Our country needs citizens working to rebuild our communities. We need mentors to love children. My call tonight is for every American to commit at least 2 years to the service of your nation. Many are already serving, and I thank you.
Introduce Melody, who's with us also, I think.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I'd like to introduce my colleague and co-director of our effort to bring City Year to Central Arkansas, Melody Myers.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. I left my hometown of Central Arkansas about 7 years ago to join national service through City Year in San Antonio. After 4 years in Texas and 2 years in Boston, I'm very thrilled to be back home and bringing a program that I really believe in back home with me. City Year's mission is to build democracy through national service. Our vision is that one day the most commonly asked question of every 18-year-old will be, where are you going to do your service year? Starting in August 2003, we are working to make one possible answer to that question, City Year in Central Arkansas. Through this program, 36 young people will touch the lives of up to 3,600 children and community members in both North Little Rock and Little Rock through tutoring, leading community members in meaningful service projects, and developing leadership skills in children of all ages. Each Corps member will complete 1,700 hours of community service and leadership training. They will receive a living stipend of $185 a week and an educational award of $4,725 towards college or repayment of loans. Most importantly, they will receive the fulfillment of knowing that they are meeting important community needs. Working together with the support of leaders like yourselves, neighborhood associations, corporations, and committed individuals throughout our community, we can bring this program to Little Rock and North Little Rock. In conclusion, we'd like to give you an advanced invitation to City Year's opening day on October 1st, 2003, when our city will join 14 other City Year sites in a national celebration of community service and leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you and Mr. Daly, who also has a little history in Little Rock. We're glad you're over here, and appreciate both of you, Melody, for coming and sharing this opportunity with us. And I'm sure this community will be more than happy to receive the benefit and enjoy the talents of the young people that will be a part of this. Thank you all very much. And I might point out that to each of us, they have shared a folder that goes into a little bit more detail on what City Year is and the opportunities that it's going to bring as we look forward to working with y'all and being a part of it. Thank you very much. All right, it looks like to me we got old business on the agenda. Mr. Whitby?
Resolution 02-140, Mayor Hayes.
I'm going to wait till we have a full council. I know Alderman Hyde's not here, so I'm going to hold that until next council meeting.
Resolution 02-144, Alderman Gibson.
Hold it, please.
Ordinance 02-61, Alderman Witcher.
Withdraw it, please.
Ordinance 02-70, Mayor Hayes and Alderman Yielding.
Call it.
That's fine.
This is an ordinance requiring surety bond or letter of credit to rehabilitate property that has been condemned by the City Council. This is the third and final reading.
Just go ahead and get a motion for its adoption. That's your choice.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, Alderman Thomas.
I've already discussed it, but I still think it's not right to require these people to try to put up a performance bond or whatever you want to call it for $4,000 or $5,000 when the amount of work that I have to do would be probably equal to that or more, and many people can't do it, and that's the reason I'll vote against it. No use me going through it again.
Any other? Alderman Gibson?
I want to understand the procedure here. This only goes into effect if it has been condemned by the City Council.
Correct.
So all the steps have been taken, and if someone shows up at the last minute and said, "Oh, I want to redo this property," that's the only time that this would come into play.
A lot of people don't really understand what we're doing here, and you'll find that out later that there'll be a hardship on some people.
Well,
let me, excuse me, Alderman Thomas, Alderman Gibson still has the floor.
Mr. Thomas, we've got to put a number on there because I think we in 4 instances have allowed someone after the fact, and to date, one of those pieces of property probably should not have been condemned in the first place. One in Dixie, which was just an uncompleted house. But of the other 4, only one of those have been completed so far, or is and I've got one that's in the process, and it may or may not get finished. At least I'm holding it on the calendar till we at least find if it's going to make process. But people deserve not to have to live next door to this, and if they can take it and it almost like starts the procedure all over again. If $5,000 is too much, I want a number in there so that when they come in and says, "Oh, I want to redo this house," and we've got some what I call class 3s that are $25,000 or $30,000 from bring them back up, and they think they can do it for $2,000 or $3,000. They get into it and find out they can't. 6 months later, we still have the house. The neighborhood still has that house, and it's just not fair to the neighborhood. And so, if $5,000 is, I would work with you on an amendment to reduce the $5,000 if you were willing to vote for the legislation. If you're not willing to vote for the legislation, we're back to where we were.
But I'll do that because it's going to pass anyway, and I'd like to have it dropped down some.
Alderman Yielding.
Now let me explain this one more time. Okay, everybody? Okay. We condemn a structure. We went through the whole process, all the notices. We went through pictures. Mr. Sipes and the code enforcement has went out there. It is unfit for human habitation. It's, just awful. It needs to be condemned. This council condemns it. We vote and we condemn a structure. We condemned it. We're going to tear it down in 30 days. It's going to be torn down. Went through all this process. It's came to the council. It's had public hearing, everything. Then somebody shows up at the last minute. After all this, they didn't do anything. After all the notices, they show up at the last minute and say, I want to fix this up. Well, chances are, like Martin said, they're not going to do it. But so they got to go out and pay a $50 bond, okay, so they can have a $5,000, pay $50 for a $5,000 bond. What that $5,000 bond is for is when they don't do it and we go ahead and tear it down. That's how much it costs the city to tear down a house, is about $5,000. Sometimes most of the time a little bit more than that. Okay, most of the time a little bit more than that. That's why it's a $5,000 bond. That's the reason for the $5,000 bond. Just like Alderman Gibson said, throughout this whole process, it's set next door to somebody or in somebody's neighborhood, and it needs to be torn down. We've said it needs to be torn down. This is just an opportunity to give the owner who comes in at the last minute and says, I'm going to do something, he's got to put up more than his word, because in the past, the word hadn't been too good. And they haven't done what they said they're going to do. So this just lets them put up a $5,000 bond. If they don't do it, then the city they forfeit the bond to the city, and then the city gets the structure torn down. That's all this is about. This has nothing to do with fixing it up or anything. Nothing to do with fixing it up. The bond has to do with paying us for tearing down that house after they've came up here and said that, we're going to fix it up now. Let us try. Of course, up until that point, they haven't responded to any notices. They haven't come and talked to code enforcement or the city or done anything. It's given them an opportunity to do this. That's all this is about. The bond doesn't need to be lowered, because we won't pay if we have to collect on it $1,000, that's not going to pay to tear the house down. Then the city, there was a list that I got for about 5 or 6 houses that in fact, I think they're on the agenda, where we're accepting the bids to tear those houses down. Okay? And every one of them is over $5,000. It comes out of the city's general fund to tear down these houses. People's tax money is paying to tear down these houses. Now, this ordinance says if somebody comes up at the last minute and says, I'm going to fix it, then we say, fine. Put your money where your mouth is, get a bond. If you fix it, then that's fine. If you don't, then the city's going to collect the money, and we're going to use that money to go ahead and tear down the house instead of using taxpayers' money. That's all this ordinance does. That's it.
Alderman Thomas?
I'd just like to make a motion we reduce it to $2,500, because it's going to be most difficult. I don't think they can get the bond you speak about. And if he does, the bonding company is going to require that they have
I'll second that.
Certain things. So
I'm going to speak on the motion.
And I oppose the motion too. But they're just moved and seconded. We're in discussion on the motion to amend. Alderman Yielding.
I don't think you understand, Alderman Thomas. I really don't think you understand. What do you mean they can't get enough? I mean, I don't care if they can't get the money to buy. If they can't get the money to buy a bond, $50, then they sure can't get the money to fix the house up. There's no way that they can do that. This is only after we've condemned a house. Only after we've condemned it. I mean, that's the only reason that we're doing this, is giving somebody a chance, but they got to put some, they got to get a bond to say, yes, I am going to fix it. If it's less than $5,000, we're not doing ourselves any good.
Well, first place, they can't get the bond. The $50 that you speak of, the bonding company is going to make sure that that this is going to be fixed before they're going to give them any bond. And
that's
and
right.
these people already, they got a problem. The house wouldn't be in that shape, so they can't get that. And I was trying to at least go give them the benefit of the doubt and try to help them as best we can to save their house, because a lot of people put everything they got into those houses and they're going to lose them.
Let me add to that in opposing the motion to amend. I've started a procedure so that I've had a practice in the past where somebody comes to the microphone and they haven't asked me, then I give them a period of time. Well, that's really not fair on the neighbors. It's not fair on the administrative effort. And so what I've done is started sending out, prior to the condemnation, a letter to the owner of the house indicating that they have 2 weeks to work something out with our code enforcement. We've been extremely accommodating. No bonds required at this point. Nothing is forced on them other than an effort, other than a good, honest move toward trying to do something that in all likelihood should have been done over 6 months, a year, maybe even a year and a half. So there's absolutely no bond required at that time. It's only when they come up here, and that's why I started writing that letter, so that when they come up here, I'm not going to, and they haven't made any effort to work it out with our code enforcement department whatsoever, even after that letter, then I'm not going to give the one bite at the apple. That is my bite at the apple. So, Alderman Thomas, I understand where you're going, but, if there is even a minimal effort to work something out prior to them coming to this council, there is no bond. So with that, I oppose the motion to amend it. Any other comments?
I have one.
Alderman Dobbins?
Well, it's more of a comment, just second the motion, but would this apply to mobile homes, also trailers?
Apply to any structure.
Okay. And I do agree we need to do something. I don't know what the number is, and I'm splitting the difference here with my seatmate here from 5,000 to 2,500. And to be very frank about it, if people were going to take care of their property, they were going to do it long before it got here.
That's right.
But once it's here, and seeing the kind of, I guess, kindness that we've extended over the past, and some have abused that. But I do think there is some number out there that we need to hold somebody accountable with their pocketbook, and I think 2,500 satisfies that. Though it doesn't cover all our costs, but look, you just rattled off about 2 or 3 of them that, that we're just holding a bag on right now. So at least we have some way to recover. And I think we should just, 2,500 gets us passed, I think that's the way to go.
Speaking in favor of the amendment. Any other comments? Amendment is to Alderman Gibson.
Let's go back to our procedure again, because you've gone another step that I wasn't aware you've done. Is that you then if you notify them, is it after it's gone on the agenda or before it goes on the agenda?
Yeah, Mr. Sipes, you and I worked this out.
Is it before the public hearing or after the public hearing?
Before the public hearing.
Before the public hearing.
Yes.
So they've got 2 weeks before the public hearing. We have a public hearing, and if we don't vote on it until 2 weeks after the public hearing, which is not always what we do. Sometimes we vote on them that night. But if we will not vote on them until 2 weeks after that, then the $5,000 is a fair number, because they've had 6 weeks by that point to have gotten together, decide to work with code or somebody in doing something.
Well, like I said, I didn't want to give, I didn't want them something coming out of the mayor's office, and usually I try to be equitable on the first request, and I know that code is working hard to get it to this point, so I wanted to make that the first bite at the apple. So Mr. Sipes and I worked out a procedure. Well, I send them a letter coming out of my office saying that they have an opportunity to work with him, prior to the council meeting. I think that's what the date is, and then if they come up here, then I have that letter and we can move the process on. Yes, sir.
We've sent 3, or you have sent 3 letters out, and we've had no response on any of them. So, FYI.
Alderman Berry and then Alderman.
It's just a question. Are you saying that we are going to have a public hearing and then wait 2 weeks?
That's fine. Yeah, I think we can do that. That will make that part of our procedure, is that we'll have the public hearing and then wait 2 weeks.
The next council meeting.
That's if the 5,000 passes. If it doesn't, then we'll go back to
the way we were.
The way we were.
Well, the 2,500 is on the table right now.
I understand.
Let's vote on it.
This is if the 5 passes. If the 25 doesn't, then we're back to the other approach. On the motion to amend it to 2,500, Ms. Whitby.
Gibson?
Yes. No, vote no on the amendment.
First time counts.
Yielding?
No.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Berry?
No.
Vestal?
No.
Witcher?
Yes.
Motion failed.
All right, now do we have a motion to adopt as amended? As not amended. A motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
All right.
Question.
There's a second, and now your question.
We are going to get the extra 2 weeks.
Yep. After the public hearing, it'll be voted on the following council meeting. It might be more than 2 weeks, but the following council meeting.
Can I have Mr. Sykes come back to the mic?
Sure.
This list that we were distributed this evening has 63 structures on it. that are red tagged. Is that correct?
If you'll notice the yellow are the ones that are closed. They've either been demolished by the city.
They've either been
repaired.
rehabbed or we've torn them down.
Right. The ones that are not highlighted
Okay,
are not
so
closed.
it looks like
14,
there's about half, a little less than half of these are still in process.
27.
And some of these things we red tagged them 2 years ago, and they were on the books, and we didn't tear them down until this year.
Right.
And over a 2-year period, these people had an opportunity to make any repairs that was necessary to that because notification was given as required by law.
Yes.
And so, with that, I don't need any other information. I'm ready to vote.
Any other discussion on the motion to adopt? Ms. Whitby?
Gibson,
Yes.
Yielding,
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
No.
Barry,
Yes.
Vestal,
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
Adopted.
Next item?
Let's see if there is an emergency on the emergency. Gibson,
Yes.
Yielding,
Yes.
Dobbins.
No.
Thomas,
No.
Barry,
No.
Vestal,
No.
and Witcher.
No.
Motion fell.
When's that go into effect?
60 days.
Okay.
Does that mean like between now and then, it's not going to be the new process?
That's right.
Next item, ordinance 0271, Alderman Yielding.
Call it.
This is an ordinance amending section 18-479 of the North Little Rock Municipal Code relating to the notification of property owners prior to administrative condemnation of property in section 309.4 of the North Little Rock Housing Code. Third and final reading.
You want to go ahead and make your motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it.
All right, discussion?
Again, I know several years ago, we discussed this, and I thought it was only fair that if a code officer felt that this house needed to be some major repairs, they ought to tell them, you got 30 days or we're going to put this red tag on, because once that tag goes on, in the past, they've even taken all the utilities away. I don't know if you changed it so much, I don't know what you're doing now, but that's the way it was for a while. As soon as that red tag went on, they'd remove all the utilities, and that meant then it was very difficult to do the work. And I think it's only a right that they have 30 days in which to think about it. You say these have been on here for a long, long while. So I said give them 30 days at least, and I think that works fine.
Any other comments on the motion?
Well,
sorry.
I would just like to say that, we met with the Landlord Association. We've got some things in here as far as vacating the house. If somebody's tearing up a house, they've got to vacate it in 7 days. Things such as that we've amended in here that I think is really going to help them. And we've also got in here that they've got to have photographic evidence. Code enforcement does before they even do anything. So that's also got to be in there. So, I think that this is, I think this is some good compromise on here, and it will certainly speed the process.
I just think one more thing. One other thing, I know that ordinance says it's here because of the Met Labs and extensive fire damage. Well, that's they do it now. That day, and they should. If they find a Met Lab or if they find a house that's damaged by fire, they put a tag on it then. And so that wouldn't that's not being corrected here in this at all. So I just feel like that they'll still need 30 days.
On the motion?
Gibson,
This is for the adoption, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yielding,
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
No.
Barry,
No.
Vestal,
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
Motion adopted. On the emergency, Gibson.
Question.
State your question.
This is do we consider this a significant rule change? And that people would need to be notified as to...
Yeah.
Just withdraw the emergency.
No, just to make the emergency clause and make it effective January 1, 2003. as a motion.
I second that.
That gets us a time set. It's 10 days less than the 60, but it gives a starting point.
Motion made and seconded that this ordinance become effective January 1st, 2003. On the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
Witcher?
Yes.
Next item?
Next item is ordinance 0272, Alderman Yielding.
Now, I had a couple amendments and they didn't get done. I'm going to hold this.
Okay, ordinance 0273, Mayor Hayes.
Are we ready to do this, Mr. City Attorney?
No, Mayor, we got to get a map agreed to by both parties, then we'll
All
be
right.
ready.
Since we don't have a map agreed to by both parties, I'll hold it. Next item?
Ordinance 0282, Alderman Height.
Did anybody
Hold it,
have any
please.
instructions?
Hold it.
Hold it. Let's go to new business.
Mayor,
I'm sorry.
if I may, concerning Alderman Yielding's legislation, there are copies available of the amendment that's going to be proposed next council meeting from the city attorney's office. Does anyone would like a copy of it?
Here they are right here.
Okay,
Pass them around.
It'll be available
They'll be available to the general public.
general public.
Yes.
That'd probably be better that they have them right now.
Okay, we'll put
And Mr. Mayor, we're wearing them out. We're trying to wear them out, the landlords. So I'd hope that they have an opportunity to speak tonight because they have to keep coming, and this is going to be another time they'll have to come again. Would they have a chance after a while to speak on this?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me, are we in new business?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask the council, I visited with the city attorney on this issue. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people to appoint, and I don't want to by any means diminish their appointment and would acknowledge each of them as we should. But I visited with the city attorney about, maybe us working toward a non-controversial calendar, and that I would make an effort to put on things that I thought were non-controversial, and then we could vote on that at one time, recognizing that any council member could pull it off if they felt that similar to what we do with our, with our communications. And Mr. City Attorney, you want to share with us what you and I discussed with regard to the law and what you think?
Yes, what the mayor and I discussed, obviously, in a case like this, you have several resolutions, non-controversial, 99.9% of the time they get adopted without any negative vote. We talked about setting a calendar to where we could have things on the agenda that could be approved by blanket motion, and then things such as the 3 ordinances that were just discussed, those come up, obviously, but detail. I'm not sure how Little Rock does it. They have their 2 different meetings that they have. I think it'd be something similar to that. The only
It wouldn't be similar. We have 2 meetings.
Well, I mean, similar is that the 2 different events would be voted on, in bulk and with great debate, and others would not. The only real limitation I saw was the requirement of state law that every vote that is adopted, you must record how you voted on each ordinance. But in the or resolution in the past, we've always opinioned that you can adopt several together just so the city clerk shows how each of y'all voted separately. So I think it's something we can explore if the council chooses.
The other thing that I would at least intend, and that is that not that this be done for ordinances, simply resolutions. That each ordinance, because of its requirement that it be read 3 times, and usually it's a more substantial rule and/or legislative action. That I would only indicate that we would do this for resolution. Now, I am certainly, I guess, at least I wanted to indicate that to the council that it's my intent to move forward with this unless there's an objection, and we could even do that with regard to a motion on these 11 appointments, and then if we adopted them all, then I would recognize each one of these people individually.
I don't have a problem with that. We need to correct a typo in R02-168, which is one of these.
All right. What's your
typo? Is the term expires on March 26, 2004, instead of 2007.
Okay. Ms. Whitby, did you get that typo corrected?
I will.
All right. With that typographical correction, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded that all the appointments, which would be R02-161 through R02-171. No, 171.
I'm sorry, you're right, Mike.
171 approved as submitted, and that the votes be recorded as all of those present having voted in the affirmative on each separate appointment. With that motion, Ms. Whitby?
Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding? Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
Witcher?
Yes.
With that, let me indicate those appointments, and if you're here, we'd ask for you to stand. Don Chambers to the Planning Commission, Norman Clifton to the Planning Commission, Albert Harris to the Planning Commission, Tommy Hendricks to the Planning Commission, Brad Hughes to the Sign Board, Erica Susky to the Historic District. Brad's here and Norman's here. Carl Jackson to the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment and Appeals. Gene Holder to the Sewer Committee. Don Blanky to the Airport Commission. Tommy Couples to the Sign Board Commission. And Roger Marlin to the North Little Rock Airport Commission. Roger's here, and we thank those of you who are here. Certainly those that weren't able to make it, we appreciate your civic involvement, and rest assured your contributions are very well received, and thanks a lot by this council and this community. With that, let's all give them a round of applause. Alderman Thomas?
There was just one thought. I have no problem at all in appointments, but on resolutions, there may be things that we all agreed upon that somebody might want to speak up that we wouldn't know about. So I'll be a little more hesitant to do it on the other resolution.
Let me just mention this, because I certainly don't want to in any way do the same with anyone that might have any questions. So, anyone that would be in the audience, I would also allow to raise a concern about the consent calendar in terms of bringing it to our attention that there is a question or concern about that, because you're right, Alderman. I don't, in the sake of lack of controversy, I don't want to overlook anything. So, I would also add to that if anyone in the audience had any concern with anything that's on the consent calendar, and I'm going to make a separate spot. This time we're just doing it a little bit out of kilter because I wanted to discuss this. But if anyone has any concern, they can let the city clerk know or any council member know, or before I call for a vote, I would even ask if anyone's there. But I would encourage everyone to look at that calendar and look at what their action is, because, excuse me, if it does seem to be on that calendar, then there's a chance that that it may not have a fair debate, and if there is a need for a fair debate, we don't want to overlook it.
And could you do it at that time rather than public comment?
Sure. Absolutely. Before we vote on it would be the time to do it. So with that, we've got some others that have to do with CBDG. Well, no, this one is one we need to talk about individually. All right, let's just go ahead and call R02-172, Ms. Whitby.
Okay. This is a resolution approving the City of North Little Rock Action Plan dated November 11, 2002, including 29th year 2003 CDBG home projects and budgets.
Move for adoption.
Okay. Discussion?
I guess there are just 2 points that I need to ask about. One of them, I think we're...
Ms. Bowman, if you want to come to the microphone.
I think I've discussed it with her before, but I think one of them here, what is it, Briley Estates, or what is it, Briley Manor? Is it a security fence?
Are you talking about the Christopher Homes?
Christopher Home, that's right. Christopher Home. Is that, what are they proposing to do there?
It's exterior lighting and cameras.
Oh, okay, it's not a fence or something.
They've raised the money for the fence, basically. Right, so we're not probably doing any fencing. So they're needing some cameras and probably security cameras.
And
it's lighting.
Is it a HUD project?
They're basically funded by HUD. Majority, if not all of their funding is by HUD.
Okay, and the other one, and I know all of us like the Boys and Girls Club. I know years ago I was with when I guess Jim Weatherton there we was always trying to get funds, but the community always took care of that. Are they, you think, the private groups, are they holding back since the city is spending so much toward that program? I shouldn't ask you that question, but that's one of the thoughts that I had. Maybe as long as the city would do it, then the private groups wouldn't come forward. But I know over the years, the last 10 years, we have spent a lot of money in that area. Now it's the Boys and Girls Club. But when I was working with it, was just the Boys Club. That was the comment I wanted to make.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Gibson.
Mayor, we need to adopt the action plan.
Okay, there's a motion to amend. Is there a second? Motion made and seconded to adopt in the action plan. On that motion, Ms. Whitby?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
All right.
For adoption as amended.
Motion made.
Second.
Is there a second on the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, let me draw your attention to R02-173. These are the acceptance of various contracts having to do with demolition and removal of asbestos. I'm going to suggest that items, I guess the remainder of the resolutions, which would be R0173 through R02-182 be a blanket acceptance subject to any council member wanting to pull any one of those. Those appear to me to be fairly routine. Now, the next council meeting, we will have these. I'm going to ask Ms. Whitby to publish one similar to this. And as I mentioned, any council member that has their legislation, I know that each of us will know what we're filing, so you can exercise your own discretion in thinking whether or not it ought to be on that calendar or not, and then if it isn't, then we can pull it off at the council meeting. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
There's a motion made and seconded, and the motion made is that we approve items R02-173 through R02-181. They're the acceptance of various contracts regarding demolition and removal of asbestos.
182.
What did I say, 183?
No, 181.
Well, 182, that's correct, 182. And I'll give the council a second or two. Is there anyone in the audience that, with regard to any one of these contracts, that has any concern about it being voted on in a blanket way and in an acceptance of those various items? Therefore, the motion is that each of these, although being voted on collectively, the votes be recorded separately, and that we accept these as items that are fairly routine business items of the council. Any further discussion? Any one of those items, anyone have any concern or questions about? Hearing none, Ms. Whitby?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
All right, let's go to ordinances.
Ordinance 0285, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
This is an ordinance amending ordinance number 7465, commonly known as the 2002 Code of Ordinance. First reading.
Suspend rules, place on second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal. Witcher.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 7465, commonly known as the 2002 Code of Ordinance. Second reading.
Move suspended rules and place it on third reading.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 7465, commonly known as the 2002 Code of Ordinance. Third and final reading.
On the question?
Gibson. Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher. On the emergency, Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher. Next item is ordinance 0286, Mayor Hayes.
Please call it.
This is an ordinance allowing special use for an excavation of a 01 floodplain zone for certain real property located south of Highway 165 at the western corner of Willow Beach subdivision. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules, place it on second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance allowing special use for an excavation of an 01 zone, floodplain zone for certain real property located south of Highway 165 at the western corner of Willow Beach subdivision. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules, place on its third reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance allowing special use for an excavation of 01 floodplain zone for certain real property located south of Highway 165 at the western corner of Willow Beach subdivision. Third and final reading.
Call it.
On the question? I'm sorry.
I think there may be people here who would like to speak about this, and I think we ought to make it clear what we're doing there, and if there's anyone in the audience that'd like to speak, I'd like to give them an opportunity to do so. I know there's some that's concerned about it, and do you want to explain, the mayor, you're sponsoring it, what we're doing?
Boys, you want to tell them what this is all about?
Yes, the applicant came in asking for a special use for excavation, quarrying-type operation on about, I think it's 80 acres listed here, but it's southwest of the Willow Beach subdivision. There were concerns by the neighbors about dust and trucks and erosion and concerns of that type. We do have conditions listed in Section 2.
Read them, please.
Those include a dust control plan to be approved by city engineer, a letter from the Dam Safety Board, a bond on the dam, that's the dam they use to drive over to the island, raise the reclamation bond from $14,000 to $28,000, and provide larvicide application in all water bodies during the excavation period. That's to keep down mosquitoes in digging areas.
Okay.
So the dam there, the wall, you think will be sufficient? That's what the engineers are saying now.
We heard some information that it was reviewed by the state. I haven't received anything in writing. That dam was built many years ago by questionable engineering. Some people have said there are logs and things in it that may be rotting, but they'll be staying at least 200 feet away from that with their excavations.
All right. Anything else? Anyone ever care to make any comments on that?
Mayor, were there any, if this went before planning, were there any, what were the comments? What was the vote at planning?
There were, I believe there were a
doesn't tell
couple of
us.
no votes. And I'm sure I'll be reminded we have two ladies from the Willow Beach area that have been to all of the Planning Commission meetings. I think the president of Willow Beach.
I'm Mary Edwards, and when we first went to the Planning Commission meeting in August, our concern was we just didn't know if digging this lake that would be 40 to 60 feet deep, just 200 feet from our dam, we were concerned about whether or not that dam would hold up to the digging. Okay, so from what he says, we should get a safety inspection report from the state stating that would be safe. And then our other concern was traffic out there, and I don't think that the city council can do anything about that traffic. I mean, this is a state highway, but we are concerned about the number of entryways. Now, I guess what we had hoped would have been that maybe where there is an entryway into the Dietz property, that maybe if the people that were going in on this property, which would be on the opposite side of the road, would have used the same driveway, because it's 1/10 of a mile from the Dietz property to where these trucks are going in for this excavation. And, we were concerned about that because the kinds of vehicles that are going in and out of 165 at the present time are big vehicles, and this slows traffic down a lot. And so when North Little Rock when we decide what goes in out there, and of course we know this is going to develop, we would always appreciate your thinking about the kinds of vehicles that do go in and out of there, because those, like the big trucks from a line, you know, it takes them a long time to turn in. And I know that the state has plans for that highway, but until those plans are developed and the work is done, that will continue to be a problem. So on this particular thing, we were just hoping that maybe the entryway, like I said, could be across from the Deeds property, which it is not right now. So I don't know whether Mr. Hookman's here. He might know. I don't know whether where the road is going to be.
You want me to address that? The problem was it was brought before the Planning Commission, Mayor, and members of the council, is that the property that some of the property owners suggested to be used wasn't owned by the people. And there was access required, and that's part of the approval on the part of the Planning Commission. And while I'm here, if you'd like, I'll address the issue with regard to the dam. The requirement that the Planning Commission made at the last meeting was that there be a bond to ensure any repair to that dam that might occur, because of the concerns Ms. Edwards made, that they were concerned that the excavation 200 feet from the dam might still cause a problem. Engineers advised us that the entire dam could be built for less than $50,000. So just to be sure, we've made arrangements for a $50,000 bond against any damage that might occur. So, and that was thought to be by the city attorney's office to be way more than adequate to protect any damage that might occur to the dam.
Thank you, Senator. Is that reflected in this legislation, Mr. Susky, a $50,000 bond?
The legislation, Scooby, doesn't say how much. They just said get a bond.
Right. Well,
and so we just decided, Ms. Hamilton and I, that since $50,000 would be certainly adequate. And that's
you would have no objection to us putting that in as a stipulation?
No, that'd be fine.
Do I have
Mayor, I would amend section, section 2 where appropriate, 2-3 where appropriate, to set the bond at $50,000.
Is that all right with you, Mr. Susky?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
All right. I have a motion and a second to amend in setting that bond at $50,000. Any discussion on that amendment? On the motion to amend?
Yeah, I have a discussion.
On the amendment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Olin, are you sure that $50,000 is a lot for a bond? Are they going to be able to get it?
These people can.
On the motion, Ms. Whitby?
Gibson,
Oh, okay.
On the motion, Ms. Whitby?
Gilding,
Yes.
Dobbins,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Vestal,
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
I knew that was.
Ms. Edwards, Mr. Boyles, you want to stand up here just one quick second?
Yeah.
Didn't we talk about an access at
Yes.
one point for that stretch of road, and we did not adopt one?
We did not. We brought before you access control plan about a year and a half ago.
Right.
And it's being discussed again by the Planning Commission. We've been trying to bring the state more in on that, but I think we'll just bring something back to you.
Well, why don't, Ms. Edwards, right now I don't know that we've got, and maybe Mr. Boyles can correct me, a whole lot of authority in terms of access, because we haven't adopted a plan. We've been discussing it, and maybe you can help us figure out something that this council could agree to, because it seemed like to me, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Boyles, we brought something up here and we couldn't get a consensus on it.
That's correct.
So right now, I don't know that there's a way that we can address the access, but if you can work with Mr. Boyles, maybe we can bring something up here that will give us that opportunity.
Okay. See, we didn't know about the 50,000 either. I mean, you know, that's why we're here.
Well, it's
one
in there
of the
now.
reasons we're here. We've got 2 or 3 reasons to be here tonight.
Well, we're glad.
That's one of them.
Okay, we're glad you're here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all. Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Mayor and the council, I just make a quick comment. We're trying to keep that area out there. We're not against everything out there. We're just trying to keep it in a state that it would be nice looking. And we, in the past, have not had any agreements with anyone that they would keep their agreement. and in landscaping or anything of that nature. And the weeds have grown up real badly out there all summer. They finally cut them last week, which we appreciate. But these are the things that we have to fight on a daily basis and look at on a daily basis. And these are the kind of neighbors we would like to help us.
Well, we're glad you're here, and we want to work with you. I had some counsel. You want Alderman Robbins?
Mayor, Council, one of the things that kind of concerned me, I thought they had a letter from our dam safety board. Mr. Boyce, correct me if do they have it or do they do not have that?
I don't have it.
You don't have one. I don't know.
I talked to a person with the dam safety board.
I don't.
There is a requirement in there of a letter from the dam safety board. And what Ms. Hamilton and I agreed was that the safety board would they can write a letter, but they won't say what anybody wants them to say. But that sort of loses its significance if you've got a bond to protect against any damage. The only thing the dam safety board could say would be that what they're going to do in this project won't hurt that dam. Well, whether 100 people say that doesn't matter if you've got a bond to ensure that if that dam is damaged, it'll be repaired. Dam safety board, they will address the dam itself.
Did you say that 3 times fast?
And I sometimes think maybe I was invited up here just because of how much trouble I knew I'd wade off into.
Comprehend that. Senator, let me ask you this question about that dam safety board. Well, actually, it's not about that. It's about the length of the term of the bond. If in 5 years that dam cracks, is that bond still good for it?
Well, the bond, it would be my assumption that the bond would act as long as they are excavating. They would have to renew their bond and maintain it just as they would with the excavation, the reclamation bond. And that reclamation bond is there, so whenever they end their project, the bond is there to ensure that the property is properly reclaimed. And so you have to renew that bond each year, and this one would be the same as any other bond. It'd be renewed as long as they are excavating.
Well, since I brought that question up, I would feel a lot more comfortable if we had that letter.
Well,
though, I guess, Senator, if there is a real emergency to get this passed tonight, I don't see one.
Okay. I go back, the letter that's referred to, the dam safety board only addresses the dam.
I understand.
Okay, they don't address a project outside the dam. Okay, so I can get you a letter that can give you their limitations, but they won't address it. But it seems to me that the Planning Commission properly addressed the issue when they required that a bond be posted to ensure that that any damage that might occur would be repaired. It seems to me that doesn't matter how many people says there won't be any damage. When the Planning Commission said, we'll put up a bond to ensure that if there is damage, it'll be repaired, then Ms. Hamilton was of the opinion that a letter wasn't even important at that point.
At that point, then, the letter and the bond are two separate items, and the bond ensures the quality of, if something does happen to the dam, there's a way of recovering that damage. A letter was simply to state that, yes, the dam's okay.
Okay, with the dam, certainly we wouldn't, the dam is not okay, from the standpoint of it wasn't properly engineered to start with. And that's the issue what the Dam Safety Board addresses, okay? This is a project separate from the dam, and what we want to do is to ensure that whatever condition the dam is in, it won't be damaged by this operation, and if it is, the bond is posted to repair.
And the bond covers that.
Right.
Okay. Let me just ask this, Mr. City Attorney. Would it be prudent to ask another amendment that before the bonds are released, that an inspection be had of the dam to ensure that it is in reasonable shape as it is now? In other words, before the release of the bond, somebody goes out there and looks at it and just makes sure that the construction hadn't done it.
Yeah, if the council wanted to do that.
I helped me draft or an amendment to that effect. I just don't want, Senator, as you can see, I just don't want the bond released prior to somebody taking a look at it and making sure there's not some,
I think that that language, my personal opinion is, wouldn't be necessary, but it's okay to put it in there, because if the damage occurs at the time the bond is in place, if it doesn't show up for 2 years or 10 years later, if the bond was in place at the time the damage occurred, the bond would have to repair the damage.
Well, I understand, and I think it just make your clients maybe in a better position if somebody inspected it at the end of the excavation and saw that there wasn't any apparent damage.
That's a good approach.
We want to try to help you lawyer that there, Senator, and if the city attorney can put some words to that effect, I would ask for a motion to amend.
But they're not going to issue the bond unless they're satisfied it's in good shape already. They're not gonna, so I think he's got what he needs, yeah.
Mayor, I'd recommend that adding the following sentence to Section 2, that it state that the $50,000 dam bond shall not be released until the excavation has ended on the subject property.
And inspection by the city engineer of the city of North.
And the city engineer has issue a letter indicating that no obvious structural damage has
What does the
occurred.
city engineer know about dams?
We can go out there and see if there are cracks in the land.
Well, I could do that.
Well, then you want to do it.
No, I don't.
I'll amend that, say the attorney from the first ward, the officer from the first ward.
I'm one of the few that have fished many times that have guessed that dam. So, that's on this.
All right, is there a motion to make that amendment?
So moved.
Is our motion made and seconded? Call the roll, Ms. Whitby.
Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yeah.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
Witcher?
Yes.
All right, now do I have a motion to adopt as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
On the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
Witcher?
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
All right, Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Let's move on.
Next item is ordinance 0287, Mayor Hayes.
Please read it.
This is an ordinance amending ordinance numbers 6058, 6059, 6060, 6061, 6851, 7142, and 7469, and adopting amended land use
Mr. Boyles, come on up here.
maps for the city of North Little Rock comprehensive land use plan. First reading.
You want to just give us a little entree on this, and then I think I'm going to probably wait and let folks digest this and maybe even call a public hearing on it.
A prerequisite to doing zoning is for the community to think about what it wants for its community, and we do that through our land use plan. We last adopted a comprehensive land use plan in the late 80s, and it was time to review this. We've been working on it about 2 or 3 years, trying to do different sections. Y'all may remember we did the 161 about 2 years ago, and this one cleans up that one a little bit. But we need the land use plan as a base guide to help us make some of our overall decisions, and then we try to use that in rezoning questions. The second page of the document gives some of our authorities, and these goals were adopted by the Planning Commission for what they want of the community. And then we just have the community land use plan broken out in 4 separate maps, and you can see the index. We took the west area, the east area, the north central, and south central, so that y'all might be able to zoom in close enough and see actually what's being proposed.
Tell you what, Mr. Boyles, why don't you plan a little bit more of a detailed presentation at the next council meeting? We'll hold a public hearing immediately after that with not intending to vote on this until the following council meeting, so that's not the next one, but the one following.
Okay, Mayor, may I ask him a question?
Sure.
On the western portion that abuts Maumelle, if you would, Robert, explain to me the area, I guess, north of Count Massey Road between 40 and Maumelle. Is that no man's land at the present time?
Well, we adopted a planning area boundary with Maumelle about 5 years ago, and they've since annexed into that area or purchased an annex. So we need to review the planning area boundary. We need to back off some more because some of this area is in our planning area, but it's now part of Maumelle. Is that the area you're referring to, north of Counts Massey?
Yes.
So it'll likely be released to them. We're showing it as residential when we don't have a clear other use pattern, but we believe that that area will likely have to be deleted and the planning area boundary brought back. That's a matter for the two planning commissions to work out. And Maumelle started something like that about 6 months ago, and I haven't heard any more or seen any particulars.
Okay, so I guess what you're telling me then, the yellow area on this map is
It'll likely go away.
Is no man's land.
Right. This is not
all of it,
sir.
All of it.
They bought 2 Counts Massey Road. That's 600 acres from the DeBoer farm.
All right.
So they bought 2 that the words Counts Massey there. So likely all that's in Maumelle will be transferred to their city for land use control, of course.
It's in the county now.
No, they purchased it. So it's in our planning area.
No, but is it in the county or in the city?
It's in the city,
Okay.
Maumelle City. So
No,
that's
no.
an area that we're trying to get the planning commissions to come together and say where the new line will be, but it will be brought back.
Well, I think we have the last say on that.
Whose city is this area in right now,
Maumelle.
Robert? Is it in the county or Maumelle or North Little Rock?
I believe it's Maumelle.
It is in the city of Maumelle now.
Their ballpark, they annexed. they
Well, I
purchased.
think that,
Yeah, that part
That
is.
part is.
But across the
Okay.
street it isn't. It's in North
That's
Little Rock.
across the street from
But
this
the area
line.
across the street's in North Little Rock.
the area across the street's in North Little Rock.
Correct, correct. And we
That they-
annexed
that
it
they
around
also
the
own.
92 time period.
They own one segment.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And what we're showing now is single family.
We're
That
showing,
remains, irrespective of their ownership, that's in the city of North Little Rock, and it remains subject to our jurisdiction.
That's right.
the area that's with the blue line, the city blue line, that is incorporated North Little Rock.
Okay.
You can see the city limit boundary, and that will not change. Of course, you can rezone property anytime. This is the land use plan. It's not really your zoning document. It's just saying what you generally want for an area.
All right, well, let's do that then, Robert. Let's plan on a poster board presentation and then a public hearing that anybody might want to comment on this, and then the following council meeting is when we would adopt it.
Okay.
Or at least address the adoption of it. With that, it's been read once. I'll hold it. Next item.
Ordinance 0288, Alderman Thomas.
Call it, please.
This is an ordinance extending special use for a daycare center granted under ordinance number 7279 in a C3 zone for certain real property located at 4725 East Broadway in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading.
Move suspend the rules, place on a second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance extending special use for a daycare center granted under ordinance number 7279 in a C3 zone for certain real property located at 4725 East Broadway in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
Move suspend the rules, place on its third reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance extending special use for a daycare center granted under ordinance number 7279 in a C3 zone for certain real property located at 4725 East Broadway in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Third and final reading.
On the question?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding. Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
Next item, ordinance 0289, Alderman Barry.
Call it, please. And add Alderman Vestal as sponsors.
Without objection.
An ordinance allowing special use for a home daycare in a R4 zone for certain real property located at 404 Libby Lane in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading.
Move suspend the rules, place the ordinance on its second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance allowing special use for a home daycare in an R4 zone for certain real property located at 404 Libby Lane in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
Move to suspend rules, put on third reading.
Second. On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding. Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance allowing special use for a home daycare in an R4 zone for certain real property located at 404 Libby Lane in the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Third and final reading.
Mayor.
Alderman.
The special use, the requirements that are on the very back page in regard to the chain link fence and all that are not in the ordinance itself.
You want to do something about that?
Well, I guess I don't know who to ask the question on.
Mr. Boyles?
I have enough concern when we put a daycare right in the middle of a neighborhood. We need to make sure that there's a way to keep the kids within a confined area. The back map shows that they're to build this 20 by 50 playground area with a chain link fence on the rear of the piece of property. Construct a driveway.
Well, the driveway's there. It's a house that's being converted for daycare.
It's a one-way in driveway. We've always basically made them do circle drives on the rest of them. We're doing a one-way drive on this one.
The business, and Ms. Howdyshell, I don't see her in the audience, but they have a vehicle where they pick up children.
Okay.
And so a lot of the pickups are not.
Okay. We just need to, somehow, I don't know whose requirement this is, but they've got to have a...
I think this is just a site plan.
drawing.
Well, you want to move to amend this approval to indicate that there's a fence?
Well, somewhere we required everybody else to do fences in daycare.
City Attorney, are you seeing that legislation where there's a requirement for them to have a fence?
On this piece?
In this piece of legislation, is there?
Yeah, there's no requirement. It just rezones the lot. What the Alderman Gibson's referring to is just a map. That's something they submitted.
Well, then in order to ensure that a fence is built, then you're suggesting that an amendment be made.
That would be correct. Create a new section 2. And current sections 2, 3, and 4 go to 3, 4, and 5. It says that this special use shall be subject to the condition that the conditions be met as stated in the map in Exhibit A.
And we'll mark that Exhibit A.
And marking that map as Exhibit A. Is there, Alderman Gibson, is that your amendment? Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion to amend?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins. Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
Now is there, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to tell, this, Alderman Gibson, this is pretty much a nighttime care center. There are a few daycare kids, but most of these are kids for people who work very late in the evening. And they'll be over there to sleep.
Well, Mr. Berry, I totally agree with you. We have two in our ward that almost back up to each other just off of Pike Avenue, and they got a special use. They don't have the requirement for the fence, and the kids love to skateboard up and down an alley, and this is going to be one item. They may be there after school or something, but the kids aren't going to sleep. The parents are going to be working 8 hours. Kids aren't going to be, they may be there from 5 o'clock in the evening to 5 o'clock in the morning, but they're going to want to get outside and have some kind of activities. And regardless of what the requirements are, I believe this is a state requirement, but nobody enforces the state requirement.
All right, well, we just adopted that. Now there's a motion to adopt as amended, if I'm right on my place where we are.
So moved.
Motion to adopt as amended, is there a second?
Second.
On the motion, Ms. Whitby?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Next item is ordinance 0290, Alderman Thomas and Dobbins.
Please call it.
An order assessing the benefits to be received by each of several lots, blocks, and parcels of land within Willow Beach Municipal Improvement District Number 1 of the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. First reading.
I move the rule be suspended, placed on second reading.
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
An order assessing the benefits to be received by each of several lots, blocks, and parcels of land within Willow Beach Municipal Improvement District Number 1 of the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Second reading.
Who suspend the rules, place it on its third reading?
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
An ordinance assessing the benefits to be received by each of several lots, blocks, and parcels of land within Willow Beach Municipal Improvement District Number 1 of the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas. Third and final reading.
On the question?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes, for yielding.
Yeah, okay. Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
And Witcher.
Yes.
Next item, ordinance 0291, Alderman Thomas.
Call it, please.
An ordinance accepting annexation of lands commonly described as lands to be titled the Church at Willow Beach annexation to the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, and making the Church of Willow Beach a part of the city of North Little Rock. First reading.
If you would, add Alderman Dobbins as sponsor.
Without objection?
And I'd like to move the rules being suspended, placed on second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance accepting annexation of lands commonly described as lands to be titled the Church of Willow Beach annexation to the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, and making the Church of Willow Beach a part of the city of North Little Rock. Second reading.
I move the rules be suspended, placed on third reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. On the motion?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry. Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
An ordinance accepting annexation of lands commonly described as lands to be titled the Church of Willow Beach annexation to the city of North Little Rock, Arkansas, and making the Church of Willow Beach a part of the city of North Little Rock. Third and final reading.
On the question?
Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
On the emergency, Gibson.
Yes.
Yielding.
Yes.
Dobbins.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Vestal.
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
That concludes the new business.
Alderman
Mayor.
Yielding? Just a second, Alderman Yielding.
There not being any objection, I'd like to go ahead and bring up 72. I was going to hold it, but I've read the amendments.
Which one are you talking about?
72.
02, 0272.
0272.
Oh,
I initially held it.
What? 74, 75. What is it?
It's been read twice. Do you want it read a third
Yeah, I
time?
read it a third time. There being no objections.
any objection? Now, which number? 0272?
Yes, we've already,
Okay.
I've got the,
it's not a new ordinance.
I know, it was in old business, right?
Right,
Okay, this is regarding a registered agent.
right.
All right, unless there's no objection. Would you read that, Ms. Whitby?
This is an ordinance requiring persons or entities who own vacant structures in the city or who own rental property, commercial and residential in the city, to have a local registered agent. Third and final reading as amended.
What's your,
Okay, there's an amendment. Most of it I'm fine with. I do have a question. I guess we need to get the amendment on the floor.
We got a problem. We've distributed all the copies of the amendments that we're going to be given to members of the city council.
Well, you can have mine.
Well,
We
but
can
there's-
no, I don't have
No,
one.
the mayor doesn't have one.
And I didn't have one.
Somebody go out there and get one.
I mean, okay, here's
There
two.
we go.
We can share.
All right.
Pass that on down.
I
looked at it when it was here before, but Bob,
You need one?
I have one.
Okay,
I
I got one.
Tony.
but yeah.
Okay, has everybody got a copy? I guess we need to, I'll make,
Yo, James.
And he's not an alderman. City would have had to done that, see?
pay for that TV.
It probably doesn't. Probably didn't hurt it.
Wait till we get through
Are you all right, Mr. City Attorney?
did you sign it already? I think we're quit working.
Didn't hurt anything, see?
Can we just get that stabilized and then we'll see what happened to it afterwards? We appreciate it. Let's just make sure it's stabilized, and I don't think we're going to be using it anymore tonight anyway. We may not be using that one anymore, period. All right, Mr. Yielding.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to put this amendment on the floor.
Second.
What amendment? That's not a proper motion. You can discuss it. I'll just go ahead and let you discuss the amendment.
Okay, well, that's all I want to do then.
Yeah, why don't you just go ahead and, just go ahead and discuss it right now.
All right. What the amendment does is require out-of-state people who own rental property, commercial and residential in the city, to have a local registered agent. Okay, and that's fine. I think what we're doing, though, in this amendment is forgetting the people who may live in Conway or Fort Smith and not requiring them to have a local registered agent. And so or other people within the state. They can do their.
I believe we have already amended this once to say that people from out of the state of Arkansas, from people within the state of Arkansas, will not be included.
Okay.
That's actually not a part of this amendment. That's part of the original amendment.
Okay. Well, I took it that you'd taken the ordinance as it was after the amendments, and then go ahead and marked it up with your amendments. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
What was
City Attorney?
The portions that were marked out after the first line, the portions that are marked out and then the portions underlined are changes.
Okay. All right. Now I have a question for the City Attorney. If we adopted this amendment, would it do what we want it to do as far as being able to find owners and clean up these properties?
Under this amendment, here's what it does. It restates the current law. Every rental property owner must get a privilege license. That is the law. And the only change it has, well, two changes. The first one is if you are an out-of-state landlord, you must have a registered agent before you can get a privilege license.
Okay.
So that's the only difference that it has. This aspect only applies to out-of-state landlords. In-state, it's safe. The only change that applies to everybody is there was complaints about the fine amount if you didn't have a registered agent certificate. What this does is change it to a $20 a day penalty if you don't get a privilege license for these particular properties. There's only two changes. Only applies to out-of-state landlords to have a registered agent. Then it changes the fine amount to $20 a day if you don't have a privilege license.
Okay. Is that going to be enough if we have to go to court on some of these people out of state? Of course, I guess some of them are going 60, 90 days.
That's up to the discretion of the council. Y'all set the policy on fine amounts.
Right, but I mean as far as going to court.
They could face $20 a day penalty.
Okay. So you think that's going to be significant enough to...
That's the policy decision y'all make. If I want to make that decision, I'd run for alderman.
Well, I know, but now I'm as an attorney, I'm asking you.
Yeah, I think if somebody waits 3 or 4 months to get a privilege license and they're looking at $20 a day, I'd hate to be their bank.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. Okay. Wait a minute.
We're just in discussion.
Yeah. Okay, is there any other comments from the city attorney?
No, that's it. This is what Alderman Vestal wanted to address.
Can I ask Mr. Sipes if he's read this and if he has any comments?
You can ask him. I don't know if he has.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine then.
Are you? We're just kind of in general discussion. I think I'm partly doing this because we've got a room full of folks out here, and normally I'd ask for a motion, but right now we're just in discussion. I don't think you made any motion.
No, I hadn't made any motion yet. I mean, what I'm looking at in here is something that I had called, most of these points I talked to the city attorney about last week. And then Alderman Vestal had the amendment. I just want to make sure that what we're doing is going to be enough teeth to clean up some of these problems and to keep us from having the problems that we're having. And that's what I want to get at.
You know, I might suggest, this, and that is, this thing's been amended once. I don't know. I mean, with regard to this amendment, I might suggest we amend it and then have the city attorney make a clean copy for the next council meeting, so that we'll have an amended, but it'll be presented in one document. That way, everybody will know what we're looking at, and we won't have any questions as to what this amendment is or isn't.
I don't have a problem with that. I just like Mrs. Coker, did you get a chance to look at this?
Let me just a second. I'm gonna open this up for discussion, Sue, if I could, just a second, and if we can, because we're not really adopting it, I wouldn't go forward other than just amend it, and then we take discussion on what we understand the amended version to be, and then we have a complete, clean copy that everyone can look at without lines drawn through it and amendments, and then the proponent will have a chance to do what he wants to do next council meeting.
Okay, I move we
Well, I got
make the amendment.
let me.
There's a motion. Just a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
I want to make a comment on that.
Okay.
Just real briefly, though. We're still mainly just briefly reading through this, addressing out-of-state owners. So, and we are protecting the identity of those who are in-state. And I want to make sure I've just got it now. So, I want to make sure we still do that protection there, because sometimes people try to retaliate against people who have to evict. So, are we still protecting our local landlords?
No, there any change with regard to in-state, as I understand it? On that?
No. What in-state landlords be required to do under this ordinance, they're already required to do under existing law.
All right, now we've got a motion to amend in a second, and then we'll go into some discussion on this. Ms. Whitby on the motion to amend, 720272?
Yes, sir. Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
Okay, now, Mr. City Attorney, if for the filing for next council meeting, just have a complete, clean copy as amended. Obviously indicated it has been amended, but we don't need lines drawn through it and all that stuff. So that way it'll be, what it looks like is what we'll be acting on as the amended version.
We'll get that to Ms. Whitby.
Okay, microphone's open. Sue?
Mike?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. Are you going to let her speak on this, Mayor? Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. I wanted to change the subject.
Good evening to all of you gentlemen, and Alderman Thomas is correct. We would much prefer to view you all, and you photograph quite well on television. And that's where we had rather be tonight than to be here. But we feel a need to come until this matter is settled. And I speak tonight for the North Little Rock landlords, and I would like for them to stand up, our North Little Rock. Now, isn't that a fine group of people? Give them a hand. These are your mom and pop landlords that are out there every day working. We don't cost you a dime, but we sure pay a lot of taxes. We pay real estate tax, and we pay a lot of sales tax, because if you go into Stanley Hardware, and I think we've even run into you, Mayor, you see us out even on Saturday morning buying things to keep our houses going. And he is correct in saying that the majority of the landlords did agree with 70 and 71. We feel like in the last 5 years that our code department has done a really good job. And people have a long period of time before a house reaches that stage. And so we are not against any of that. But we do want to know, and I'm not sure if I even understand at this point with all of the lines exactly what this says. I know it starts out by saying out-of-state persons are entities, and I'm sure that that's their companies. But Mr. Art told me one time all that above doesn't mean a thing until it gets down to where it says, be it ordained by the city council of the city of North Little Rock. Is that correct?
Well, the meat and potatoes is correct. The other
okay.
gives guidance.
So we want to know that bold paragraph up there that it says out of state is not really part of this down here. Is that correct?
it needs to say it down here.
It does.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just wanted to make sure that we understand all of that.
If it's after the now therefore, that's where you want it.
So anything after that, all this above, you know, it's there maybe to make us think one thing, but what we really ought to be thinking is what we see below that. Is that correct?
Well, actually, what the above the now therefore does give guidance. But
Gives
the
guidance, but it is not part.
It is not the operative law.
Thank you, sir. And we did get a copy of the current, where landlords that rent property, duplexes, houses, where we're now paying $1 per unit. And actually in that, I did not see anything where people 65 or older that own less than 5 pieces of property. Is that still excluded in this, or does this say that everybody pays this regardless of age? Can you answer me that question?
Mr. City Attorney?
We have an ordinance on the books that says if you are over the age of 65, you are exempt from paying for a privilege license.
That's correct.
It's long been the belief in the city attorney's office, it predates me, you still have to get one, you just don't have to pay for it.
Right.
Okay, so that means that landlords that own less than 5, is that it?
If you're above 65.
If you're above 65, it's limited to 5 properties, is that correct? Or is it all of your properties?
My recollection, the ordinance doesn't care if you're a landlord, doesn't care if you're a lawyer, doesn't care if you're a gas station. If you're over the age of 65, you don't have to pay for a privilege
Let
license.
me make sure we're clear. 65 or older.
It's 65 or older.
Well, Lord, I've been paying this all these years.
But that goes...
Because I thought it said if you had more than 5 pieces of property. So I think we've got that clear then. If you're over 65, you don't pay that $1 per unit. Is that correct?
We'll leave that up to the city attorney. I hear him saying that.
But you
Yeah,
still,
it doesn't matter what you own or what business you have. If you're 65 or over, you're exempt. You still have to get a privilege license. You
Yes.
just don't have to pay for it.
You have to come
So-
down. I understand that. Okay, but they don't have to pay money.
hold it, time out just a moment, because I've got a question.
Okay?
If I still own the previous company, which paid about $82,000 a year in privilege taxes, is Fisher Lyman Cement, no, Fisher Lyman Cement, it's not, is Catcher Metals exempt from it?
Reed McConnell.
They're a company,
McConnell.
not a person. They're a company, not a person.
Well-
Where you get into, and this is the ordinance that was adopted, I think, back in the 70s,
Yes.
Alderman. But what it is I think if you take a look at it and you analyze it, if it's a corporation, you got to pay it.
This wasn't, neither
If
one
you
of
are
them
an
were.
individual, having your individual business license, you're above 65, you're exempt
Martin
under the
Murphy
ordinance.
Company is an individual.
Well, I think they can arguably say they're exempt.
Well, we need to revisit this.
I don't think so.
Exactly
We got them going now.
We appreciate it, sir.
Okay?
Because we're billing these people.
Well, you know, if we're going to be for or against something, I really want to know what it really means, and that's the questions. I want to know so that our landlords know what's going on.
So you want a copy of the clean ordinance too?
Well, but I think she's talking about things that are beyond what this is.
Right.
Yeah.
Because in the paper it was stated that people, you know, if they had less than 5 pieces of property, then they didn't have to pay on those 5, but then now you're saying that it doesn't matter how many you've got, you're exempt if you come and register them. Is that correct?
No. The exemption is based upon your age, has nothing to do with
Well, no,
how
I
many
know
you
that.
have.
I know that. We're talking about over 65.
If an individual's over 65 and they want a privilege license to do anything, you're exempt. It doesn't talk about rental property. It doesn't talk about number of business.
Okay.
If you need a privilege license, you're 65 or over, you're exempt from paying it.
Okay.
That's it.
Doesn't matter. Okay. So this,
Let me just interrupt you a second, Mr. City Attorney. Would you visit with Mr. Sisson and the city clerk's office to see, to the extent that applies, if there's anything that we might be doing now that we ought to either quit doing or address potential changing the law or informing people about what the law is?
Certainly.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Sue.
Well, no, that's all right. I mean, I think these things do need to be cleared up so that we know exactly what we're doing. And I have talked several times with several people saying that you must advertise this in January, that anybody that rents property needs to come down and register their property and pay the tax. So many people, you wouldn't believe the people that call us and they didn't have any idea until they saw it in the paper. And that needs to be done, that you notify people who rent property to register their property. And I read in the North Little Rock Times where one of our city officials couldn't believe that we would go into business and not check all of these rules and regulations. And what a lot of people don't understand is that landlords, many are not there by choice but by fate. Their parents die and they inherit the house and then they start renting it, and they really don't consider that a business. I know time is rather limited, but I must tell you this story. We had a lady call one of our landlords. She's an older lady that lives in Memphis that moved there because she had to go and live with one of her children. She left 2 rent houses here in North Little Rock. And she was real upset when she read the paper and she didn't know if her property was listed or not. In fact, she kind of wandered off several times. And so she had an agent here in the city that does take care of her property. So she gave the name to our landlord, and we called that person, and he takes care of a lot of property in North Little Rock, and he didn't know you were supposed to list the property. But I think he does know now, and he will list her property. But the way the law read before, the ordinance, that older lady that couldn't sell her property because of capital gains and used it for income would have been fined an exorbitant amount of money per day. And that was ludicrous. That was. Okay, my next question, it says here that if we don't list this property and pay our money, and I guess this would start February the 1st, it would be punishable by $20 a day. And, that's really great because that's a big difference in $20 a day and $500 a day. Is there any other person that gets a privilege license in North Little Rock that they are fined per day for not getting that privilege license, or is it only landlords? Can you answer me that?
The way this is written, it's only landlords by the day.
Only landlords? And all of these businesses here in North Little Rock, and we're singled out to be the only ones to pay? I thought
let me just calm everybody down a little bit. We're in discussion. We're not in throwing comments back and forth. So we'll respect y'all, and we ask for the same. If you want to comment, you'll have an opportunity to come to the microphone.
Well, that was my question when I read this, and it said we would be fined $20 a day, and all these other people that have businesses, and we're the only ones, and we're the person that works so hard to help you get rid of crime, and we do our properties. That bothers me. Okay, are you saying then that we go on the way we are, and we list our properties? Will we be able to use a post office box number, or with a telephone number that you can get a hold of us, or will we be required to give a home address?
This ordinance has absolutely no change as to any landlords who live in state. You'll be required to do what you have to do already.
Okay.
And what those requirements are, I think Ms. Whitby could best explain that, but has absolutely no bearing to what you have to do currently.
Okay.
In-state landlord, no change.
Okay, I really personally have no problem with that, but we have some landlords, and some of you are aware of a tenant that we had. He did all of his mischief on my rent property, not at my personal home, but it could have easily have been reversed. So I understand you need to get a hold of us, and I think most of our landlords, if they use a post office box number, would be willing to give you a telephone number so that you could get a hold of us. So I think that is all the questions that I have, and some of our landlords may have.
Alderman Thomas had a question.
I wanted to ask you a question. I know one of the concerns that was brought to me may be that we're charging maybe $1 a unit now, that this council might come back quite soon and maybe make it $15 a unit. Is that still a concern that the landlords has?
You proposing that?
Well, at that point, I might invoke my age. But of course, at this point, I do pay it, and I will be there January to pay mine again, because I feel like that I make money in the city, and that is my duty to pay that if that is the law. So I would not hide behind that unless you all made it so prohibitive that I just had to.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think many landlords would be opposed to a slight increase in that dollar. Things go up. And I've wondered, I looked at the copies, I did get a copy of what people pay in the city of North Little Rock, and it really is low. The privilege taxes that businesses pay, it's low. And I'm not here, we just voted all the taxes away, but I know that the city has to have money. And, if there was a reasonable increase across the board, then, I can see where that,
Excuse
would
me,
be all
in the
right.
audience, we've got somebody at the microphone. If you want to conduct a conversation, please go to the door.
So yes, that's my answer to that question, that I know that you have to have money to operate, just like I have to have money to operate. And so I wish you would look at that $20 a day fine. And I appreciate the hard work that you all have done. And the way this reads now, I think most of our landlords would be very happy with it. And I would like to say again that we are very appreciative of the things that you have done for us. In 2000, when we got the ordinance that gave us the right to go out and do many of the repairs on our homes that we had not been able to do, we still thank you when we are able to do that. And so we do appreciate, and I know y'all have a hard job, and we do appreciate all the good things that you do for us, and we wish you would, continue to do some good things.
We'd like to thank Sue that we're working together for common goals, and we appreciate y'all and the work that y'all do also.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, do you mind if I help clarify something? She talked about the $20 a day penalty. Got to realize the fine amount is not set by anything the council does. The fine amount on privilege license is set based upon the cost of your license. So, for instance, a business that has a $1,000 privilege license would pay a $2,000 fine. So the fine you pay is based upon the value of your license. So if you have a $100 license, the fine could be $200.
What's the $20 a day?
The $20 a day is based upon, this is trying to get with what the alderman wanted. Prior to this, if somebody failed to get a privilege license that was a landlord, they'd get a $20 fine, period. And so what two aldermen expressed to me was they would like to have it to where they could be fined more than $20 for not getting a privilege license. Then you just don't get a privilege license, you get caught, you write a $20 check. This way it allows somebody to have a reason to want to pay that fine.
Well, let me ask this question. That just because it authorizes up to $20 a day for a fine doesn't mean that that's what the judge would impose.
Rarely do I see a judge maximize a fine.
But as long as it's out there, there's a possibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
As long as it's out there, there's a possibility.
Alderman Gibson, I'm sorry.
I have a little separate set of concerns because
Were you finished, Sue? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I was.
we're creating different dates for privilege license. One of them's going to have to be gotten before January 1, and the other one has to be done between January 1 and February 1. Basically, is the period the bills go out, and we have until I think April to pay them. Or
To the last.
we need to look at this whole thing and in regard to that, and maybe line up the dates to be the same dates.
Well, that's what we were hoping.
I mean, if we would.
And that's what this does. Understand, this makes no date changes. The only date in here is the effective date. The only date thing in this one states that before you get a privilege license, if you're an out-of-state landlord, you have to have a registered agent certificate first. It doesn't alter the date that they're still required to get.
Okay, what does our in-state, in North Little Rock, whatever the rules, what are their dates? When do they have to give us a list of the properties and pay their privilege tax?
Between January 2nd and March 31st.
Okay. So that's when they have to do that. And then only after March 31st does the time period start.
Yeah, with the $20 a day kick.
Okay. Item one. I'm really concerned about an unfair advantage that we're creating. I know some people who do pay their privilege taxes, and they are considerable amounts. We have many large businesses within North Little Rock that are owned by private individuals who are over 65 years old. And I have a concern that we're exempting. I can think of more than one of them are multi-million-dollar businesses that are in effect exempt from paying privilege tax. Not a salvage yard or not an auto parts store, but major businesses that are exempt from it. And if that is in fact what is the law, it is not always the practice, because not everybody does that. But if they're an incorporated business, obviously they have to pay it. But they're a single ownership of that business based on what it's read to me, and that's totally unfair competition to the people who have to compete against them.
Well, I don't disagree, and that's why I've asked Mr. Sisson and Mr. Susky and Ms. Whitby to take a look at that, and perhaps we might need to make some recommendations along those lines. I wasn't aware of it as perhaps many of us weren't, but the other part of that coin also is, in order to be entitled to an exemption, you got to claim it, and thankfully, I guess a lot of these people hadn't been aware that they claimed it, but we need to make it fair for everyone, and if this is an item we need to address, then I would hope that Mr. Sisson and Ms. Whitby and Mr. Susky could make some kind of equitable recommendation to us.
And maybe we just exempt a portion of it, first so much of the fee, whether it's on the rentals or on something else. But I can think of some people who would probably be paying some very expensive privilege taxes, and they're paying them.
How old are you, Alderman?
I'm 62. I'm not one of them.
Alderman Thomas?
Well, does all the cities in Arkansas do they have a privilege tax?
Do every city in the city? Every city over 25,000 has one. Probably every city over 5,000 has one. Every city in Pulaski County has one.
All right, we've been in discussion. We've amended the item. It's going to be brought back a clean copy. Any council member have any comments they might make before I open the microphone?
Mayor,
Alderman?
if you would, since we covered Resolution 172, I've been a twit because I'd looked through my material, but I didn't look at it closely enough. And let me tell you why. In 2003, Mr. Height and I had made a conscious decision that we wanted some commitments that we had made to some folks in Levy, specifically on Sycamore, and in that area, to be complete. And the decision that we made not to try to claim any 2003 money, with the understanding that that portion of the money that would have gone to Ward 4 would go to finishing those projects that is now going into Ward 3. As I look at the plan that was delivered to us Friday a while ago, I realized that money had been distributed evenly among the 3 wards. And so I guess, while you guys are the benefit of it, I'm going to ask you if we can reconsider this and move $50,000 into the Ward 3 Sycamore Street Phase 2 plan and remove $25,000 each from Ward 1 and Ward 2. Because, this is the agreement, that Charlie and I made, and I thought I had conveyed that to Ms. Bowman's staff.
I'll take Alderman Witcher, I'll take that as a motion to reconsider 172. And is there a second to that?
Second.
Without objection, Ms. Whitby, would you read 02-172 once again?
This is a resolution approving the City of North Little Rock Action Plan dated November 11th, 2002, including the 29th year 2003 CDBG, home projects, and budgets.
Without an objection, I'm going to take this as a unanimous consent to bring this back before us. We don't need to vote on that unless there's an objection. It's now on the floor.
I can bring it up. I won't have it voted on the affirmative side of the issue.
Unless there's an objection, we'll just have it back on the floor. We'll have, just go ahead and move for adoption so we can get it back before us.
Okay, move for adoption, please.
Is there
For
a second?
consideration.
Motion made and seconded. Now it's right for amendment. What's your amendment?
Okay, Mayor, what I propose is the action plan which we had attached as a supplement be changed to reflect projected use of funds beginning on page 10 for the 2003 projects. Ward 1 be amended from $125,000 to $100,000. Ward 2 from $125,000 to $100,000, and Ward 3 be amended from $125,000 to $175,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do we need to, and since Ward 3, the Sycamore Street project is in there, we don't need to make any other amendments.
Well, then there are some other places where the same
The dollar amount.
dollars
listed
are
on
recount,
13 and 14.
13 and 14 also.
And change it at every place that it's adopted.
Yes.
Okay.
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 There's a motion, I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion made and seconded to amend it in accordance with Alderman Witcher's wishes, and Ms. Bowman is understanding what that adjustment would take. Alderman Thomas?
I think I understand what you're saying. Are you saying that you didn't take any of the block grant funds for that year, and now you're wanting them? Tell us again.
Okay, Mr. Height and I agreed that we would not try to claim any CBDG funds for 2003 in the Ward 4 area as it is reconstituted because of the commitments that we had made in Levy. And with the Ward 3 guys taking over that area, we had been working with them, and they had been helping us with some of those projects. We'd been shifting money back and forth from our drainage funds, and we had made a commitment to them that we wouldn't claim any money, with the understanding that the money that Ward 4 would have been allocated in 2003 would go to helping finish these projects, which is $75,000.
So basically, that money was to go. $75,000 should have been in Ward 3.
Yes.
At when this was written up.
It should have been 175.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yes.
On the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Definitely.
Vestal?
Yes.
Witcher?
Yes. Move for adoption is amended.
Second.
On the
Gibson?
motion?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
Witcher?
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other council member?
Yes. Mayor, while we're cleaning up things, I'd like to recall 02-70 to clean up the date that it goes into effect. We did not pass the emergency clause, means it's going to go effect sometime in the middle of January. I'd like to see if we can make that one also effective January 1, so we have a clean understanding of what happens when.
Tell you what, we could do that administratively, Mr. Sipes. With regard to the bond, we're not going to, whatever goes into effect, we're not going to start enforcing it until January 1st.
No, it's set now to go like January 15th or 18th.
Well,
we
then
didn't.
we need to do something.
We need to. So I'd like to, having voted on the prevailing side of on 02-70, I'd like to have that recall to vote on the emergency
Is there a
clause.
second? On the motion to recall, Ms. Whitby?
This is an ordinance requiring surety bond.
No. Yeah, just on the recall.
On the
This is just
recall.
on the recall, put it for us.
Yes.
So just call a roll on the motion to recall.
Oh, okay. Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
All right, it's now before us. Move for adoption and listen.
I need to, I think what we got to do, I move to make the effective date of this ordinance January 1, 2003.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that the effective date, so essentially you're amending the emergency clause
To a set date.
to a set date, January 1st, 03. On the motion?
Gibson?
Yes.
Yielding?
Yes.
Dobbins?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Vestal?
Yes.
And Witcher?
Yes.
All right, anything else? Microphone's open.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I got one thing. I just want to say thanks to all my family and friends and supporters and their prayers, and thanks from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for another 4 years.
We want to again compliment the two aldermen that that didn't draw an opponent, Alderman Gibson and Alderman Witcher. We want to compliment Alderman Berry for a vigorous campaign. I know that he had several opponents, Mr. Gaines, Mr. Ard, and they all worked hard, and we congratulate the voters of Ward 3. Ward 2, what day is it? 26. I think early voting starts a week from.
Well,
Who knows? But we're the only. Actually, Ward 2 is the only show in town in the county, as I understand it, and that there will be a runoff between Linda Robinson and Chester Bates for representing Ward 2, and we hope a large number of people come out for that. But again, with the two aldermen didn't draw an opponent, in addition to Alderman Berry, I think we ought to give them an applause. Now the microphone's open.
No, Mayor, I'm going back to enter into the race now.
Mayor and council members, I apologize for beating a dead horse, but I'm a little bit hard of hearing and I didn't catch just everything, so I'd like to ask a question or so about Section 1 of this ordinance, if you all have it before you.
Which one?
And to see if you've already talked about this, or well, then I apologize, I didn't hear it. But there's about the fourth line down there, it says, each day a person owns, and then you skip down there, and it's hard to read here, rents, leases, or allows another to occupy a property without having obtained a privilege license shall be a separate offense punishable by $20 fine. So, I'm asking you a dumb question, I'm sure, but I'm up in years, and let's assume that my daughter would buy a house and say, Dad, you and Mom can move in this house. Be close to me so I can take care of you. Is that person going to have to come down and get a privilege license, subject to a fine?
No.
Beg your pardon?
No.
That's what it says here. Rents,
if you
leases, or allows another to occupy property.
My answer once again is no. Not going to require to do that.
Do what, sir?
Is no, they would not have to do that.
You don't have to do that?
No.
Okay. But if they did, I mean, if we own a piece of property, you ever forget your wife's birthday? You don't have to answer that. But then you come down and if you miss it a day, and what day did you say, Mrs. Whitby, that was the final deadline?
That'd be March 31st.
Is that what the other businesses have, the same thing?
Yes, sir. That's all business license.
All businesses have okay. And then it's a $20 fine. Are other businesses fined if they go past the deadline?
If they go past the deadline, then the penalty is a quarter of what their business license would be. So if it was a $100 license, then they would owe a $25 penalty on that license.
On the other license. So this would be a $20 license. Now, there are many landlords in this city, as Ms. Corker says, that doesn't even know that they're supposed to pay a privilege license. I'll assure you that. How are we going to notify them?
Just do the best we can. We ask for your help. We'll, I don't know exactly how I can answer that other than say the best we can.
Well, it's bad, I think, that we, for 100 years or years and years, why people have allowed, have had the privilege of owning a piece or two or four or five pieces of property and never even thought about a privilege license. Now suddenly they're going to be fined if they don't pay it. And I think that's wrong unless we spend, as citizens of the North Little Rock are notified by the city some way or another. Now you mail a statement out to a business, don't you?
Existing
but you don't mail them out to landlords.
If you have a license set up in our computer, you should receive a letter.
I paid mine year before last. Last year I didn't pay it because I forgot it. This year I was notified by the police department that I hadn't paid it, and so I paid it. But that's a true story.
Okay.
And so I don't know how How many's own a computer of landlords?
I couldn't tell you the number of landlords.
Not a great number, is
But I can find out.
Yeah.
And I can find out
That's
what we can do to
Let
take
me
care
just
of it.
mention this. This is proposed legislation. It's not adopted
I
at this
understand.
point. And I'm sure that the proponents, as well as this council, would be interested in any suggestions with regard to that area.
Well, I don't know how you'd notify us, but we definitely need to be notified. And of course, this is going to cost more manpower and more time, I'm sure. Just there's probably more landlords, or as many landlords as there are other separate businesses. It's going to be difficult to enforce this thing. I'm not opposed to the dollar. I'm really not. But I am opposed to this young man right here. If he wanted to move his daughter in next door to him, or his mother or somebody occupying a house, he'd have to come down and register it and pay.
Our city attorney says that is not the case.
What?
Our city attorney says that is not the case.
That's on this.
Well, let him explain it to you. I'm sure he can. Anything else? Do I have a motion?
No move.
Thank you very much.